Hello and welcome to Gegenpressing, the Bundesliga podcast. I'm Manu and Matt. He is Matt Ford. This is the matchday 25 recap show. Lots of topics to discuss. We're going to kick it off with Borussia Dortmund and then speak about the ever-increasing relegation battle. Feels like half the league is involved now. But first of all, Matt, how's it going, buddy? How's your weekend been?
Yeah, good. Thank you, mate. Another busy weekend. I was in Köln yesterday, Cologne against Dortmund, which we'll get onto. Interesting developments for both teams there in terms of personnel when it comes to Borussia Dortmund, and in terms of increasing relegation worries when it comes to Köln. But a fantastic day out. Aside from that, great atmosphere as usual, full house, lovely weather here in the Rhineland. It's been lovely all week. So yeah, good day out unless you're a Köln fan, in which case you're very worried.
But yeah, that's all cool. But what about the Friday?
The Friday? How could I forget? Yeah, no, true. I actually forgotten. It's been a busy Bundesliga weekend. I actually forgot. Yeah, it started off on a Friday night. God, that seems like ages ago.
Yeah, that is true.
It sounds like that feels like actually ages ago. Yeah, Victoria Köln against 1860 München. Some team from Munich who play in blue. Don't think they're that important, really.
Yeah, no, not really.
Good win though. It was, really important
promotion battle right in it.
Well, yeah, I asked you that during the game, didn't I? Like, seriously, do you see 1860 in a promotion battle?
Well, everyone expected them there to be fit at the start of the season, and then they had a horrible start to the season. And as it is always the case with 1860, when it pops, it really pops, and everyone got fired. Kicked off with the investor again, right? And then there's still some stuff going on behind the scenes. As there always is at 1860. It is a Chaosverein, as they advertised themselves when they visited Cologne.
That was the topic of the choreo. Yeah, massive firework display.
Fans are starting to embrace it, so at least there's that. This is a Chaosverein, but yeah, the squad is definitely good enough. It's a very deep squad. Lots of good talent coming up, as there always is in Giesing. And the goal was a bit
of a gift, though, wasn't it? Victoria Köln have just, the goalkeepers passed it straight out to.
And that's like the quality stuff when you get someone like Volland to play for you, right? In the third division,
Kevin Volland with the goal, right?
Yeah. His goal is to play Zweite Bundesliga with 1860. He's an 1860 product. His family is from the region. His father was a very successful hockey player, national team player, right? And so, he came back with the promise of getting the team back, him and Florian Niederlechner, and I think that's the goal this year, to get the team back. And for a long time, it didn't look like they were going to be part of the conversation. But you look at the table now; they're right in it. They're fifth, even on points with a bunch of teams, and only 3 points from, I have to check because there were some results today, but
yeah, I think Cottbus only drew again this weekend.
They're on 48 points, 3 points behind third, which is a promotion relegation spot, and 5 points behind second place Cottbus. Now, you might think 5 points is a lot. It's not in the second or third division. That's nothing. And the goal differential is creeping up too, and yeah. I am fully expecting to be over there in May and get massively disappointed.
No, it sounds good. Definitely, 1860 definitely seems to be on the right track. And I'd love to see them back up in Division 2 with a club like 1860 belong.
Bundesliga, that's always been their place.
That was one of the reasons why I would say that a lot of the people around me at Victoria Köln on Friday, most people were there to see 1860. Not because they're particularly fans of 1860, but because the club has an intrigue. The club's well known. The club has a history. The club has
the top 18 for most traveling fans every year.
Yeah, I'd estimate, just purely based on looking with my own eyes, I'd estimate around about 1,500 last night, which is a serious effort when you consider it on a Friday night from Munich.
What's the capacity of that stadium?
Oh, no. but I'd guess around about sort of 8 or 9,000, but it's rarely full. Victoria Köln's support is pretty limited. You tend to find that most people who turn up to those games are watching the opposition anyway. But yeah, it was well worth it, and wasn't the most spectacular game, but a very, very solid and well deserved away win for Sixers.
Yeah, we'll see where that leads. I was kind of on the fence about going back in May because of the World Cup and all that, and now it might look like if there's nothing to cover in the Bundesliga, maybe do some Zweite Bundesliga, Dritte Liga promotion stuff.
We've got more than enough relegation battle stuff in the Bundesliga to keep.
Oh, we have lots to discuss. But before we get to that, the big topic that we wanted to kick it off with, Borussia Dortmund, they beat Köln, rebound win from the defeat to Bayern Munich that ended the title race. I think it's now about just keeping it respectable, the distance to Bayern Munich, right, for the rest of the season. Nothing else really to play for. They're out of the Pokal. They're out of the Champions League. And it seems like there's already decisions being made about the future. The big one that seeped through, there were some rumors about it on Friday, that, Dortmund might not renew the contract with Julian Brandt, or Julian Brandt might not renew the contract with Borussia Dortmund. As it's always the case with something like that. The narrative put out by both sides is always a little bit different. But it's a fact now, Julian Brandt is going to leave the club after 300 games with Borussia Dortmund. I'm old enough when the deal was announced, his free transfer was announced from Bayer Leverkusen, with Michael Zorc in charge. It was a big coup by Borussia Dortmund at the time to get Brandt on a free transfer. And it seems like ever since he's been there, he was linked with a move away from the club, and now it's finally the time. He's 30 years old. I guess the question is what's going to happen to him? What is he going to do next? Where is he? I think there's going to be plenty of clubs in the Bundesliga that probably would like to have him. Is he going to go abroad? Is he going to try a new adventure? North America has been mentioned. He really enjoyed the training camp there in San Diego, and maybe that's a passage that he wants to take, although I think he's probably still good enough to play at the highest level. And then, of course, for the Borussia Dortmund, that changes a lot of things too. There's been a lot of talk about Justin Lerma and Samuele Ignazio, who made his debut the other day, right, against Bayern Munich, and looks like a really promising talent if there's more space being given to young and talented players going forward. But it kind of feels like, I was thinking about that when I saw the news, and I'm thinking about this whole crop, and we will get to this discussion more in depth, I think, further down the road when we have more clarity of who else is leaving, right? But Emre Can's contract is expiring, Niklas Süle's contract is expiring, there's talk about Nico Schlotterbeck. And I kind of thought, how there's always, like, football is as much a game on the field, but also the narratives that come with it, right? And I just kind of thought, this squad and the faces of this team, that story kind of feels like it's been written now and it's come to an end. Like, it feels like that chapter is getting to the end of this chapter and the beginning to a new chapter, and we need a new narrative around this club. And sometimes, getting rid of players and bringing in new faces, bringing in fresh wind can do almost as good for a team than a coaching change or a sporting director change. But it just feels like at a time where the season is now over for them and there's nothing really to look forward to, starting to try to write a new narrative to give the fans something to look forward to is almost now what we have to kind of look into.
Yeah, I think it is the end of an era, not just for Borussia Dortmund, but also just for the Bundesliga in general. I think Julian Brandt, again, we don't know if he's going to leave the Bundesliga. He might move to another German club. But he's certainly, in his time, having come through as an exciting young player at Bayer Leverkusen, and then he's moved to Dortmund, he became very much a face of that Borussia Dortmund team over the past, how many years has it been? 7 years. And I think he's become a face of Borussia Dortmund in both a positive way, but also in a negative way. So, we'll start with the positives, because I think despite some of the criticism from time to time, on his day and when he's on form, Julian Brandt is a wonderful, wonderful footballer to watch. A fantastic first touch, a great little turn of skill to find a yard of space. A good supply of crosses, good from dead balls. I don't have his exact goal statistics to hand, but yeah, always good for important goals. I think there was a period, it might have even been last season, where he scored a lot of Borussia Dortmund's first goals in games. So he was often scoring important goals for them to get them up and running in games. And I think quite an impressive character off the pitch as well. We mentioned in the podcast earlier this season where we were discussing the issue with the captaincy around Dortmund, and the fact that Julian Brandt had, I think he'd voluntarily given away the idea of being the official third captain, the official third in line to the armband, which I remember saying I didn't think was actually a bad thing at all. I actually thought it said a lot about Julian Brandt, the fact that he's not the sort of player who necessarily ever needed to wear a captain's armband or be the loudest in terms of vocally leading his team, but in terms of the way he played, I thought he was quietly effective and always led from the front. I say always, most of the time led from the front with his feet. But yeah, I say only sometimes, because there were criticisms too of him going missing from time to time, potentially being a little bit lightweight in some of the biggest games. And in that sense, perhaps in some respects also symbolic of Borussia Dortmund's habit of falling just short over Julian Brandt's time at the club. And yeah, perhaps in some ways he sums up that side of Borussia Dortmund as well. But I wouldn't let that tarnish his reputation. I think he's been an extremely impressive player and a good servant to Borussia Dortmund, and like I said, absolutely one of the best players in the Bundesliga in the past 10 years.
Yeah, 298 games, 56 goals, 69 assists. I was wrong. It wasn't a free transfer. He had an exit clause at Bayer Leverkusen and joined for 25 million euros in 2019.
Yeah, it was that period where there was a quite clear food chain, wasn't there, in the Bundesliga transfers at that period, of players going from either Leverkusen or Gladbach to Borussia Dortmund, or Borussia Dortmund to Bayern Munich. And Julian Brandt very much fit into that. Exciting player. I really hope he stays in the Bundesliga. I would understand it if he would want to, or if he got the offer and a chance to go to England or even further afield.
There's been links to Aston Villa, but I just don't see it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's a lazy comparison, but I think off the top of my head, you'd probably stereotypically see him suiting Spain a bit better than England. But purely from a personal, selfish point of view, I'd like to see him stay in the Bundesliga in some shape or form, because I enjoy watching him. I think he's a good player. Yeah,
no, I'm really. I get the sense from talking to people that he doesn't know what's next, and he strikes me as a character that might surprise us with his decision, as well, of what he's going to do next.
But like you said, I think his moving on, in conjunction with some of the other potential moves away from Borussia Dortmund, signals the end of an era. And I think you're right to say that it's probably the right time.
It's the right time for both sides. It's the right time for him, and it's the right time for I think the club really seriously, and this might be one for the summer, as you suggested before the podcast, where we're going to have to talk about what they have to do to completely restructure the squad. But
I think questions,
very big questions, right?
And a lot of focus on Lars Ricken and Sebastian Kehl.
Yeah, because you could see Brandt, Süle, and Schlotterbeck all leaving in the same summer.
Yeah,
that is very, very possible.
I wonder if they're 100% convinced by Serhou Guirassy up front as well, whether they're absolutely convinced by Bellingham, although he's been making progress in recent weeks. I think Mecha. No, I'm not suggesting that any of those contracts are going to get ruled out, or these players will get immediately sold in the summer. But there's a lot of thinking to be done. And like I said, there'll be an awful lot of focus in the summer, and probably even earlier now that Dortmund's season is effectively sort of over. And we'll get onto it in a sec. But there was definitely they bounced. It's not about saying they bounced back from the defeat to Bayern, but Niko Kovac summed up the game in just 3 sentences in his press conference. He said, He was happy with the 3 points. Didn't like anything else in the first half or the second half. End of. That was it. And he was right. It wasn't a good performance. Although it must be said, Julian Brandt combining with Maxi Bayer was a really, really good goal. That was probably their best and only good moment of the game, really.
Yeah. No, I mean, Dortmund is a fascinating one at the moment. But we're going to switch our focus to the bottom of the table, where David Skelton is asking, is the kid making you grey, Manu? No, that's just the age of time.
It's the cat, not the kid.
It's the
cat.
It's the cat. I had to remove the cat to do this podcast. No, this is just what happens when you're extremely light-haired and light-skinned, and that white hair turns into grey hair when you turn around 40. That's just how it is. But I wonder how many grey hairs Lukas Kwasniok is getting. You know what I get the sense of Leverkusen is, and Kicker put this really well. Gut gespielt, schlecht gepunktet. Played well, didn't get the points. And that's been sort of the story for some time now with them. You know, you never really get this.
You mean Köln, not Leverkusen.
Köln.
Right, okay.
Yeah, sorry. Köln laugh.
Leverkusen.
Leverkusen is Köln's real team. That's like where I have a belief that Köln fans all have a Leverkusen jersey hanging in their closet. And when they go to Leverkusen to see good football every once in a while, which is of course not 100% correct this year, because I actually don't think Köln has been playing bad football. It's been a results problem, not a football problem. Of course, Kwasniok doesn't do himself any favors. You mentioned it in one of your recent news. I can't remember if it was last one or the one before. He doesn't always give the best public persona. That's something he definitely needs to work on. But like it was a Paderborn, the football he's playing is good, and he's giving young kids a chance. He's now given in, I think, more or less, and starting Said Al-Mala. Young makes his professional debut. It's not for the lack of trying, is it, that they don't get the results?
Yeah, 5 games without a win now.
Yeah.
Only one point in those last 5 games. But you're right, the performance. It's a strange situation. The performances actually really haven't been bad. Stuttgart away was actually a very good performance, and they got no points out of it. RB at home was a good performance. They got no points out of it. Hoffenheim at home was probably the best performance. They got 1 point out of that. Okay. Augsburg away was a shocker. I think they can rule that out as the worst performance of the season. That was absolutely shocking. But then yesterday against Borussia Dortmund was again it was a good performance sporting wise from pardon?
With a player down as well.
With the man down as well for about 60 minutes. Well, no, for the second half mainly. There's been various criticisms of Lukas Kwasniok. I think they're mainly of a personal nature, as you mentioned. When he was wearing his kit on the sideline in the opening few games back in the summer, I think it made a lot of quite a lot of sort of cultish, witty international headlines. I even saw it mentioned on the BBC at some point that Cologne's coach is wearing a shirt. Didn't go down that well in Cologne, to be honest. Yeah, it didn't actually go down that well, to be honest. A lot of the hardcore sort of thought, who is this guy? Who do you think you are? You act like a clown. And then it obviously continued with there have been some rumours in the background which are unsubstantiated, but they do exist. Won't go further into them. And then there was his comments last week, which I mentioned in the newsletter, where he tried to compare Cologne's fans being quiet due to a medical emergency to Vincent Kompany's impassioned address about racism in football, and everyone's thinking, mate, what on earth are you on about? And the mad thing is, he said it twice. He said it once in an interview, and then 5 minutes later walked to the press conference and said it all again. So in that meantime, nobody's told him, maybe don't repeat that. Anyway, so there's all that. But so he's not the most popular figure. We mentioned earlier in the year, even when Cologne were doing well, there was that banner in the away end away at Heidenheim saying Kwasni Yok, as a Yorker Turkish word meaning no or
yeah,
out.
I was just gonna. It's slang,
So he's
right?
not,
Like it's a Köln Turkish slang, which
whether
the
it's
youth has
whether
kind
it's
of adopted.
whether it's a particularly Cologne thing, I don't know. It's a mad Turkish isn't brilliant. I think I believe it's a Turkish word for no. Anyway, so, but in terms of the actual football, like yesterday, for example, he pretty much fulfilled all the demands that Cologne fans and other observers had. He started Saïd El-Mala, and I thought, in terms of El-Mala's starts, one of his better starts. I've always been a little bit more of the opinion that he's better off the bench. I think he's been a bit disappointing in his starts, but he was decent yesterday. He started Jakub Kaminski at number 10 rather than right back, left back. God, he's played everywhere, Jakub Kaminski, but he started in his preferred number 10 role. He started with two out-and-out strikers in Ragnar Ache, who's been their best player since Christmas, and the youngster Yusufa Niang, who had a great chance in the opening couple of minutes, a really a good header, which he's in hindsight.
Promising talent.
He is promising, but in the Cologne situation, that you need that header to go in.
Totally.
So yeah, and I thought, particularly in the first half, I thought they were good in midfield as well. I thought Johannesson and Martel were doing really, really well against Sabitzer. I think it was Sabitzer and Mecha in midfield, or was it Bellingham? I can't remember. But either way,
Nemcha and Sabitzer is correct.
No, it was Sabitzer, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And they were doing well, and then, but yeah, an issue's been corners and defending for set pieces. They concede one corner after giving the ball away midfield, counter attack, corner, don't clear the corner. No one's watching Guirassy, and he sneaks in and dinks it home. The second goal after half time, we said, is actually really, really good from Borussia Dortmund. Fair play to that. Maxi Bayer and Julian Brandt combining well. And then there's some, from a Cologne point of view, they would say it's bad luck with VAR decisions. I think on balance, the general consensus was that the red card against Simpson Pussy was probably just about justified. Although I also think it's harsh, but that's probably the least controversial one. And then there's but more controversially is the handball claims against Jan Couto in injury time when it's 2-1. And I think on that one, I think everyone's in agreement really that it's a pretty baffling decision. That
ask me, I don't know what handball is.
that the referee has not even looked at it. VAR has not even looked at it. If anyone's not seeing it, Jan Couto's left arm is sticking out from a cross, and it's how everyone look at it. It's an unnatural position. It changes the flight of the ball. It affects the argument from the Cologne Sporting director of sport, Thomas Kessler, was that it changes the way in which Linton Maynard controls the ball. I'm not sure I could totally agree with that, because Maynard does manage to control the ball and get a shot away. But either way, it's at the very, very least, it's a VAR has to look at it. And in that case, it's most probably a penalty.
The DFB has since said that they should have reviewed it.
Okay, well, there we go. And so, yeah, when it rains, it pours. And so, for as much as Cologne did miss chances, particularly the Niang chance early on, and also must say, as much as I thought El-Mala was dangerous enough down the left, some of his final products, his final crosses, weren't finding their man. There was a chance in the second half where Cologne were on the counter-attack and the ball goes out to El-Mala, and it was a good chance, but it would have been an even better chance if El-Mala's first touch had been better. And I know we're talking about maybe quite harsh criticisms of young players. In Yusufa Niang's header should be going in. El-Mala should be controlling the ball and finishing it. Maybe they're harsh criticisms, but everyone's talking about El-Mala as being potentially in a World Cup squad, or 40 million, 50 million price tags being put on his head. If you're going to be demanding that, those sort of accolades and those sorts of developments for him, then his first touch has to be better, and his final products have to be a bit more consistent, even though he is only 19. But
that's El-Mala.
Yeah.
That's kind of what Nagelsmann said, didn't he? Nagelsmann mentioned this in the Big Kicker interview. in which he basically gave away his entire squad for the World Cup.
Yeah. But it shows where they are with the development of Almala. But either way, it's left Cologne with, like we said, one win in five, and only 2 points clear of the relegation zone. If there's a positive way of looking at it, it's that you wouldn't necessarily be expecting a newly promoted team like Cologne, and they are newly promoted. I think people forget that. With a coach who's never coached in the Bundesliga before, they were expected to get points against Hoffenheim, Red Bull, Stuttgart. However, the next 2 games, they absolutely are expected to get points. Hamburg away, another promoted team, who are already, I think, now 4 or 5 points ahead of Cologne. And then the big derby at home to Borussia Mönchengladbach, who are also not quite safe yet either. So, yeah, absolutely decisive weeks coming up in Cologne.
On the hand panel, the kicker asked the Schiedsrichter GmbH for a statement, and the statement from the Schiedsrichter GmbH, which is pretty much the association that runs the referees, right, from the DFB, said, for us, a lot speaks for a punishable handball offense in the box, and VAR should have intervened here. The fact that there was no penalty decision is a clear mistake by the referee team.
I mean, yeah, I'm sure that's
as clear as a statement as you can get from the refereeing association, I would say.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not gonna get into discussing VAR either myself personally, because my opinion was the same 7 years ago when it was introduced, so that's not going to change. But there we go. It's just another example to add to the list. On that note, I would direct anybody to Google Preußen Münster and VAR this weekend.
That's going to be in a newsletter, surely, right?
I will go into more detail, yeah. But for the time being, Google.
I'm disappointed if you wouldn't.
Google Preußen Münster, Hertha Berlin, second division, VAR, and
there's a referee standing in front of a black monitor on the side of the pitch, very confused. It's a good story.
Let's just say that not all heroes wear capes, but sometimes they wear masks. Anyway, one last thing I want to mention, the Cologne game, is just to basically bring home how the atmosphere is sort of, I wouldn't say tipped, but how people's nerves are a little bit on edge now in Cologne. And that comes in the person of the stadium announcer. I mentioned him a couple of weeks ago after the under-19s game, when he took to the stadium mic to basically tell off the pitch invader. Which we thought was maybe quite funny, but then again, it was only an under-19s game. This time he made 2 more interventions on Saturday night. The first one was after the red card to Jamai Simpson-Pusey, where he took to the microphone and basically went like, "Whoa, widerlich," which means disgusting. And he said that loud over the announcement system as if he was reading out the team. And then at full time, about moments after the final whistle, he takes the microphone again and basically tells the whole stadium, the game's over, 2-1, despite a clear handball from a Dortmund player in the box that the referee has not even looked at.
The referee association agrees with him.
Yeah, which it turns out he's right. But I remember thinking at the time, I was sat next to a colleague. I sat next to a colleague from Spiegel. But we both sort of looked at each other and thought, "Have we just heard that?" Because he said it. He said it at the time that the referee and his 2 assistants were making their way towards the tunnel to leave the pitch. They were, at this point, I'd say they were about 10 yards away from the tunnel area, so getting close to a lot of Cologne fans who were in the stands.
He's been officially reprimanded for it now, the DFB.
I think
these kind of statements have no space in the stadium.
Absolutely no. And in fairness to the managing director, Thomas Kessler, in the mixed zone afterwards, he was asked about it, and he said straight away, he said, no, it's obviously not acceptable, and that he said that there are lots of people in this club who are paid to make comment on refereeing and sporting decisions, and he says that he's absolutely not one of them, and that he'll be being spoken to. But I thought, no, really, really irresponsible, because you've got the referee and his assistants there walking towards the tunnel where there are Cologne fans there, and he's effectively, he's effectively winding up the home support over the PA system to suggest, telling the crowd that we've all been hard done by and the refs are against us. Which now, okay, you might say that he's correct. The referee decision was wrong. Okay, that's fine. You can criticise that, but there are people in the club who are paid to criticise that, not a stadium announcer with a microphone telling 50,000 people that the refs cheated them. That's not acceptable. But I think it goes to show how basically I think people are getting nervous in Cologne. I think it reflected a lot of the atmosphere.
I think I think Köln, rightfully so, have a point to prove. I think I'm going to fact check this too. I know 1860 is the most disadvantaged team in German football at the moment with the refereeing decision. I think Köln was second or third. So they have a point, in fairness.
Yeah, but there's a way to go about it, isn't there?
I mean, and this game was a perfect example of it, right? Yeah. I mean, they have rightfully, like, they should have gotten a point from it, and that point would have put them on 25 points, 1 point ahead of St. Pauli in the drop zone, a relegation playoff spot, right? But the results this weekend mean that there is now just a 3-point gap. Let's make it a 5-point gap between 10th HSV and 16th St. Pauli. And the reason why I'm mentioning that is because there was a game between HSV and Wolfsburg are now firmly in that drop zone. And you think the heat is high in Köln. What happened after HSV against Wolfsburg, the fisticuffs on the field, after HSV turned around the game, Eriksson with the penalty, and then Vuskovic answered with a penalty, and then Dombe from the spot, the same Dombe who was suspended not that long ago, 2 different penalty shooters, which I thought was interesting. Then a red card for Müller in the 99th minute, fisticuffs on the field. Wolfsburg deep in the relegation zone. We get to all of that in a moment, but HSV, I want to just briefly touch on that. First of all, Vuskovic. When he leaves Tottenham, because I think he's probably too good for them. That's going to be all the money.
You think he's too good for the championship?
100%. 100%. He's probably way too good for Tottenham and the championship. I mean, what a leader to step up in a situation like that and put a penalty away. I think he didn't take the second one because his penalty wasn't perfect, right? It was almost kept out.
Wasn't perfect is a polite way of putting it. It was, in terms of worst pens of the year, it's up there between that penalty and
but it went in.
Union Berlin's penalty against Frankfurt.
Yeah, I remember that one. But it went in, and then I think he decided not to take the second one because the first one was obviously not good enough.
Interesting.
He steps up and scored that one, right? But I
thought it was really impressive leadership though from Vuskovic. I mean, you're right. Maybe there was an element of him being a little bit concerned that his first pen was really, really bad and he got away with it. But I thought it showed. I think it shows because obviously he won both penalties as well. He was the player fouled for both penalties. So even for the second one, to give the ball I think there's 2 steps out there. First of all, he's given the pen to somebody else. That's step 1. But the fact that of all people, he's given the penalty to Jean-Luc Dompe, who was, like you said, was recently suspended for an incident of drink driving, not for the first time either. So also a problematic figure in the dressing room and within the club. But to give him the responsibility and effectively to show we're all in this together. You've made a mistake, you've paid the price to your mistake, done your punishment, but you're back in the fold and we trust you, we respect you, and we have confidence in you. Take this penalty in the relegation battle. And then I thought that it was a much better pen as well.
HSV, I mean, we were talking about this before the show. In the past, 35 to 36 points have been enough to avoid relegation. They're on 29 points. They're really close of getting to that point total that you need. Let's say that it's 15. It's still the 40 point. 40 point is the absolute marker. No team's ever been relegated in Bundesliga history 40 points. The reality is that far less points have been necessary in the last few years. But even that is only 11 points out of the last 9 games. Like, that is absolutely doable for Haas.
Absolutely. I would go so far as to suggest now that Haas are about probably one win away from being effectively safe, and it could come as early as next week at home to Köln.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be a massive game. And that's why we're going to leave further Haas for our talk to later, because we need to talk about what that means for Wolfsburg. There's a really beautiful word in the German language. Auflösungserscheinungen in Wolfsburg. Signs of disappearance is the translation, or the best translation I can come up with. If you come up with a better one, I know your German is excellent as well, Matt. You let me know. But Auflösungserscheinungen, this signs of disappearance is the way I would.
It's not just disappearing; it's more like signs of dissolving into thin air.
Signs of dissolving is, I think, the best. But that is what's going on there. It looked like signs of everything is just completely falling apart. The news this morning, of course, or throughout the day in Germany, was that head coach Bauer and sporting director Christensen have been, sporting CEO Christensen.
CEO of Sport.
CEO, because Schwegler is there, but he's in the sporting director role. Sometimes it's very confusing because in Germany there's the Geschäftsführer Sport, which is the sporting CEO, and then there's usually a Sportdirektor. Back in my day, that was just a manager, but we can't use that term anymore because a manager is now a head coach. So whatever. 2 important people got fired, Matt. Is what I'm trying to say. And that is really a big turnover. And Dieter Hecking now back, last fired at Wolfsburg in 2016. The club back then eventually rescued by Bruno Labbadia, and then Glasner came in, if my track record is right. He is come back. I think Dieter Hecking is the Peter Neururer of our time. Whenever a club doesn't know what to do anymore, there's 2 phone numbers that you have on speed dial. One is Friedhelm Funkel, the other one is Dieter Hecking. And if you're really desperate, you can always call Bruno. But the Friedhelm Funkel probably busy with something else. So Dieter got the job. And I don't know. I watched this game, and it's not like HSV are world beaters, but they're a team. And Wolfsburg is a bunch of lads that get together to kick the ball around.
Yeah, not particularly. I mean, even HSV weren't particularly good either.
No, but they're a team. Like what we just described with Vuskovic, there's leadership there. When the situation is tough. There's people there that identify who can do what. Paulsen always keeps the level low, right? There were clear expectations coming into the season that to stay in the league and to build on that. And so they play within their limitations, and they're doing that really, really well. And Wolfsburg is just a bunch of lads, and Christian Eriksen. And then on top of that, Maxi Arnold was on the bench. Like, he didn't even start. Like, the guy that has been the only person since Roy Breger who actually identifies with this club left off the field.
It's a complete mess. I really don't even know where to start. It's been a mess ever since. I mean, ever since the arrival of Peter Christiansen, really. The CEO at the club.
I know Stefan is watching, so like he will have a Danish joke ready.
He arrived back in 2024, I think it was. Brought. I mean, I don't want to make this like an anti-Danish or Denmark bashing thing. Denmark's a lovely country, but he installed quite a few of his compatriots in various positions. And then, half his transfers have been pretty disastrous from start to finish. Like you said, it's difficult to know.
That's an understatement. I think like I said, terrible. It's been atrocious. The amount of money burned.
I was looking through some of it before. Some of the figures that have been spent, was it 15 million approximately on on Andreas Skov Olsen, or 14 million, sorry. There was even an admission from the current head coach, Daniel Bauer, that the 10 million signing of Jonas Adjete from Basel was nothing more than an experiment. That's his words, not mine. I mean, the amount of money that's been thrown around there for so little reward is absolutely negligent in terms of it's corporate negligence.
Okay, I was just gonna say they can do it, but they're backed by Volkswagen. But it isn't like Volkswagen isn't in a position where they're like, oh yeah, 10 million. Like they will be in the next few years will be firing people that worked in that factory left, right, and center. And then that's probably up. It's just wasting money away like that. It's just
I don't know. That's definitely part of the bigger picture around Wolfsburg. I think we suggested on the podcast last week, didn't we, that by all accounts the commitment of Volkswagen to the football club Wolfsburg, apparent by all accounts, remains and is not in doubt. And we said the Volkswagen CEO was in the dressing room after a recent game. He's now
not in doubt.
Well, like I said, we don't have any information to the contrary. I mean, it also wouldn't surprise me either if it was sort of let go, but by all accounts, it's not going to be the case. And you mentioned sort of money that it takes, 10 million here, 50 million there. There's no precise figures because they won't tell you, but the general consensus is that it's around
a company that always finds out the fees.
It's around about between 30 and 40 mil that's provided by Volkswagen each year. That's also just despite Volkswagen's industrial issues that they have going on, it's still small change in the sort of figures that they talk about.
You know, it's very different if SAP spends that money, SAP spends that money on Hoffenheim, because that's like a multi-billion euro technology firm and it's someone's private money as well, right? Like jobs are not getting lost at SAP, and like jobs that are also partially, like Volkswagen is for a long time was owned by the government partially, right? So like, you know, like the politics around it are very, when Bayer or SAP waste a ton of money on their football projects, or even Red Bull, that's their money. It's not quite the same for Volkswagen.
No, absolutely, and there are figures within Volkswagen, as there are indeed figures within Bayer who have absolutely nothing to do with football and wonder why they have a football team. So those voices do exist, but like I said, by all accounts, the current Volkswagen CEO, Oliver Blume, is apparently committed to the football club. So, yeah, for the time being, all we can say is that the future is financially okay, but their future in the Bundesliga is at serious risk. And you've already mentioned Christiansen has been let go. Daniel Bauer, the head coach, has been let go. From what I was reading anyway, the suggestions were that those changes should have been made at the very, very latest last week. I think there were voices around Wolfsburg who wanted them to go the week before, with the knowledge that they had this home game against Hamburg coming up.
I heard noises like that over Christmas.
Exactly, but particularly with that Hamburg game coming up, there was a feeling that they could use a new manager bounce in a relegation 6-pointer against a newly promoted team to really sort of, invoke some energy around the place. Similar to what we've seen at Werder Bremen in the past couple of weeks. And I mean, we can criticise, I think, Wolfsburg for the support and the attendances, and I think that's right. The ground is literally half empty most weeks. It was full on Saturday, but only because between 10 and 15,000 Hamburg fans had just taken over the place. Despite the fact that Wolfsburg had required people to buy combo tickets. So Hausfauer fans have had to buy another ticket for some other Wolfsburg home game in order to buy a ticket for the Hamburg game. So maybe they'll go to that as well if they're free.
Oh man! So like the next Wolfsburg game has probably a really high attendance number with
a load of Hamburg fans who have got a ticket.
Yeah, like because those are tickets sold, right? Usually the attendance number is tickets sold.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so even if they don't
They
turn
might
up,
announce like a
they'll
ridiculous high number
yeah,
of people in the
the next home game
stadium.
days, but they'll claim it's full because of all these
Yeah,
tickets that Hamburg
exactly.
fans have bought. But it's interesting. We saw a couple of last week the Werder Bremen ultras spoke to their team, and then I mentioned it in my newsletter that their capo, the ultra with a megaphone, he took the stadium mic before the home game against Heidenheim, did a massive speech to the entire stadium, and you get this feeling around Werder Bremen that as a result of that, that everyone's in the same boat. The fans, the players, the board, the whole city is there.
Having a moment too.
They attempted similar in Wolfsburg. If there's one group of fans that you can't criticise there, is that the relatively small ultra group at Alpha Wolfsburg. They are always there, and they attended training in the week to try and support the players and try and develop that bond with the players and try and develop that relegation battle attitude before they go into a big game. And then they were all in the stadium early, knowing that there was going to be thousands and thousands of Hamburg fans there. So even before kickoff, even Wolfsburg fans had all the pyrotechnics going off and the flags and a big banner throughout the game saying "the last chance with our support." And you thought, right, so they are trying something here, trying to generate some sort of fight out, some combative attitude. But I wonder how serious they really could have meant it, because by full time the banner had been changed to something saying that was your last chance. You've lost our, you've wasted our support, and they already had that banner planned. So it's as if they already saw the defeat coming.
Well, but you could see that defeat coming. I mean, this team is horrific.
Yeah. And then it culminated in the scenes we saw at the end where, while there's a massive scrap going on the pitch between the players, the coaching staff.
A hockey game broke out in the middle of the field.
Yeah. And meanwhile, behind the goal, the Wolfsburg ultras are letting off black smoke and launching flares into the pitch in the sort of scenes that you associate with Frankfurt and Cologne, to be honest.
It's really one of my earliest games that I've ever covered was that relegation fight against Holstein Kiel, the relegation playoffs.
Yeah, I went to that one. Yeah,
and I was in Wolfsburg. Oh, we were together.
In fact, yeah, I think we
with Chris Williams. I think this is the first time we met in person.
I think it might have been the first time we met actually in Kiel.
Yeah. And the game in Wolfsburg, other than them having a blip in the stadium, which is very 1990s indoor arena in American sports, the fans and like the stadium speaker did a Cologne, and it's like, the entire republic wants us to go down. This is Wolfsburg. We're gonna stay in the league. Blah blah blah. And then Mario Gomez scored a goal, and they stayed in the Bundesliga and all that. But I got the real sense that there is a really small group of people that care, but I don't know if that's still the case almost 10 years after.
It's always an interesting discussion. I've spoken to people around Wolfsburg about this, and it might seem strange to people from the outside, but within Wolfsburg, they genuinely do see it as this like symbiotic relationship between city, club, and company. And the attitude is that, with generations of people who live in that town, which exists for Volkswagen, have given so much to Volkswagen as a company, and the football club, they sort of see it as Volkswagen's gift back to them, and the whole symbiosis just works together. From the outside, that seems bizarre to a lot of people, and it's criticised by a lot of people. And I think the criticism can also be justified. There's also the exemption of 50+1, etc., etc. But nevertheless, like I said, the support doesn't seem to be there. There's no groundswell of support that seems desperate for Wolfsburg to stay in the league.
I remember, so my dad worked in Wolfsburg a lot in the 1990s because he built the Autostadt. That was one of his projects. And so I spent some time there as a kid. And when that was around the time the club also came up, right? With Reubreger, who I just mentioned earlier. The community then in the city was different than it is now. Because a factory city was still a real thing. It was a thing that actually existed. There was a community, but there's more automation now. There's, I mentioned this already, but like with the emergence of electric cars, you don't need as many jobs to make those cars anymore. So like I think the social makeup of the city is changing.
Yeah, perhaps. And it'd be an interesting one to follow. Yeah.
Yeah, and with that, people move away to other places. Young people that grew up in that city don't stay there. They go to Berlin, which is not far away, or to Hamburg, which is also not that far away, or Hanover to get jobs there. So, and they don't, like, these people don't go and become lifelong Wolfsburg fans.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's not. And so I actually wonder what's happening both on and off the field is kind of like, and I've mentioned this on the show before, I think it's almost like a cultural reflection of what's happening to the town in general.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and I think it'd be really interesting to see how it goes on, because
there's a good case study for this. You
can't even compare it to Leverkusen. I would suggest that the sort of the groundswell of support in Leverkusen, but also in Dusseldorf and Cologne, it's not massive, but it does exist, and it's bigger than that in Wolfsburg.
Shout out to one of our subscribers, Roses Actor, really smart guy, works in New York finance, which is why his name is hidden. But he mentioned Bayer Uerdingen as a comparison. You're familiar with Bayer Uerdingen, right? Like early 1980s, 1990s. Pretty big club in the Bundesliga, stadium, 35,000 seat stadium to this day. After the 1994-95 season, Bayer defunded Bayer Uerdingen. The club turned into KFC Uerdingen because Bayer said we can only focus on one team. We don't have enough money for two teams. And KFC Uerdingen, I think, are now in the 5th division somewhere.
Yeah, it's again, it's a topic for another day, which I'll just wax Liverpool
I might write
about.
a newsletter on Bayer Uerdingen as a potential parallel.
But it's another, as far as I'm concerned, and it's my personal opinion as well. But it's an example of the dangers of clubs not being owned along 50+1. This can happen.
This can happen. No, absolutely.
But it really was. It was a humiliating day for Wolfsburg. I was even just reading before, which I wasn't at the game, I wasn't aware this had happened. But a couple of Kicker colleagues from Kicker, they were talking about the press conference after the game, which in Germany, not normally, people would have seen it. It normally takes place with both coaches and the home team's press officer in the middle. It's like moderating it. This time, for various reasons, whether it's because discussions were already ongoing about the future of Daniel Bauer and the boss, Peter Christiansen, the press conference was effectively postponed, leading to Hamburg to take the press conference themselves in Wolfsburg Stadium, with the press conference being moderated by Hamburg's press officer with just Merlin Podzin, and a press room full of Hamburg journalists, because people care about Hamburg, having just played a game in a stadium in front of up to 15,000 Hamburg fans, where they'd taken over the place, and by all accounts there were Hamburg fans celebrating in the VIP boxes as well. It wasn't just in the away end; they were all over the place. And you've got Daniel Bauer there in the press conference when he finally got around to doing it, describing it as a Nord derby, a North derby. Sorry, mate, that's not a derby.
Well, it's close. No, I mean it's going to be interesting. I think maybe the final point that we need to discuss here, Dieter Hecking comes in.
Yeah,
his last job in the Bundesliga was with VfL Bochum, and then led to relegation.
Yeah, and despite his previous stint at Wolfsburg being generally successful, they came second and won the cup. It was, but he was also released from Wolfsburg back then after they completely collapsed down the league. And I think they were 14th when he was released. It was a long time ago. It's interesting that he's effectively. Yeah, he was released 10 years ago from Wolfsburg because they were plummeting towards relegation, and now 10 years later,
he's come back to finish the job.
He's been brought in to finish the job, maybe. Yeah, like we said, it's desperate. It's desperation. Dieter Hecking is he's a giant of German football management. Perhaps ending a few years ago. He's a well respected figure in the game. Great achievements. Yeah, good head coach. He's now 61. What was a good head coach? He's now 61 years old, and There might be a remnant of personal connection remaining to Wolfsburg, although I'm really not sure.
So
I really struggle now to see them staying up.
I was thinking about, like, in that squad, other than Maxi Arnold, who is going to know Dieter Hecking?
No, yeah. It won't be a name that rings any bells with them.
Yeah. And so, like, he comes as a 61-year-old guy, and like, listen, lads, we have to work hard, libero, like defensive football. My last job was with Bochum and I got relegated.
I can only imagine that the hope is just the simple idea of a new figure in the dressing room, and but like I said, it really is desperate. The next few games are tough as well. Hoffenheim away will be his first game, and again, like we said, I don't want to just come back to the fans and have a go at the fans, but in any other situation, Hamburg in a relegation battle, Bremen in a relegation battle, if they went to Hoffenheim, there'll be 25,000 fans following them and taking over that ground as well. There'll be maximum 500 people going to Hoffenheim to support Wolfsburg. The whole thing, the bubbles is just completely burst. And then a couple of weeks after that, they got Bremen at home. Bremen have now won 2 on the bounce, combined score 6-1. They were really good today.
Before we went on the show, I watched Bremen only one, and I thought they were excellent.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not massively surprised that Daniel Thun is an extremely good manager. Ironically, in charge of Fortuna Düsseldorf in that playoff, which Dieter Hecking was no longer in charge of Bochum 4, but
no, Dieter Hecking became
he hadn't taken over at that point. He hadn't taken over yet. Yeah, but it was that Bochum team which beat Daniel Thun's Düsseldorf to stay up. That Hecking then took over. That was his last stint in the Bundesliga, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And after that, they've got Leverkusen away. It's a tough fixture list.
Yeah.
And I struggle to see, with the best will in the world towards Dieter Hecking, I struggle to see how it's going to work.
I don't think it is going to work. Also, you look at the results elsewhere. We mentioned Bremen beat Union, right?
Yeah, everyone else is getting
I think Pauli got a point. Mainz got a point against Stuttgart. And, like, yes, it's only a point, but that's a point against Stuttgart.
Yeah.
And St. Pauli's point, like, that game, I watched it really early this morning. Not pretty, but it's a point.
Doesn't have to be pretty. You've got 9 games to go, so every point counts.
Exactly. So you look at the table now. There is a 4-point gap now to the relegation playoff spots. You get into the territory now where the relegation playoff might be the best you can get.
Yeah, no, certainly looks that way from a Wolfsburg perspective, which would be the 3rd playoff if they get that. That's a bit of a way to go yet. That'll be they've never been relegated, but they have already been into relegation playoffs, haven't they? Like I said, me and you were at one of them against Kiel.
That one that they got finally kicked out?
No, the one before Kiel was Eintracht Braunschweig.
Oh, that's right. It was a derby.
Which is more of a derby, yeah. That's more acceptable as a derby. Definitely not Hamburg, but Braunschweig maybe.
I work with Braunschweig and Hannover fans at Transfermarkt, and that's a derby for that. Braunschweig, Hannover.
Yeah.
But
although, and it must be said that even in those years that when they were in those relegation playoffs, they got, I would say, pretty fortunate in the teams they faced. The Holstein,
the one against Kiel was very. Oh, you mean in the teams that they faced? Yeah,
exactly. Because I mean, the Holstein Kiel that they faced were nowhere near as good as the Holstein team that got promoted a few years later. They were quite a way off that at that point. And Eintracht Braunschweig, I don't think have actually even come close to it since.
Well, you look at the Bundesliga table right now. I know Hannover lost this weekend, but they're still within 3 points of that relegation playoff spot. I mean, in my ideal world, Wolfsburg go down and Hannover go up, and then Niedersachsen keeps their team. But it's a 49,000 seat stadium with a city attached to it rather than Wolfsburg. But that could be the playoff.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, there's obviously a few games to go yet, but
and even Elversberg, they played the playoffs last year. Like the second time around, it was close against Heidenheim. It was in the stadium for that game. They will have far more experience this year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we'll obviously go into in some more detail if it does come to that.
Probably be there.
that usual pattern that you see in these playoffs where a Bundesliga team which has had a bad season still gets over the line in the playoff because they just have better players in the squad and they just make it work on the day. If, and it's a big if, if it were to be Wolfsburg or this Wolfsburg team in the playoff this year, I don't think that would apply to them.
I don't think they're going to get there, but that's.
But
I think
nine games to go. Like I said, the first three, the first three of those are really, really tough. I've not looked further.
Peter Hacking might prove us wrong.
I think they have. Do they have St. Pauli on the final day? I believe. Yeah.
This will be the final point of the show.
Yeah. Final day of the season is St. Pauli versus Wolfsburg. That could be interesting.
Massive game. All right, Matt. Well, with the title race finished up, and the top six pretty much cemented, the relegation battle will be it for the next few weeks for us. This was fun. Enjoyed that, mate. And probably talk to you. Champions League is this week, so probably talk to you midweek at some point.
Yeah, Leverkusen.
There we go. Against FC Set Piece.
Keep an eye on that, yeah.
Keep an eye on that. Matt, this was awesome. I'll talk to you very, very soon. And thanks everyone for listening, whether it was live or after the show was recorded. Talk to you guys soon. Until next time. Auf Wiedersehen.